Riot gear clashed. At the University of Florida, 9 protesters arrested. The school saying the University of Florida is not a daycare and we do not treat protesters like children. They knew the rules. They broke the rules. Jewish students on both sides of the issue, some who are pro-Israel, say they've been harassed.
It's not easy to say they're alone when the whole university is practically against us.
At USC, administrators canceling their main commencement ceremony due to protests. Many of the soon-to-be graduates missed their high school graduation due to the pandemic.
My high school just had a drive-through graduation. I personally was really looking forward to having this main ceremony and traditional graduation for my whole life.
And Stephanie Ramos joins me now from Columbia University for more on this. Stephanie, what's it like there right now?
Right now, Diane, it is pretty calm. It usually is around this time in the morning. There are still barricades outside of the Columbia gates, just a few feet behind me, just kind of ready for what's maybe to come later on in the afternoon. We know we've seen small groups of pro-Palestinian protesters and pro-Israel protesters gathering here outside of Columbia University, both here at the Broadway entrance and the Amsterdam entrance on the other side. But right now it is calm, and it's calm on campus as well. But we, of course, will be monitoring the situation throughout the day. It's certainly changed.
Now, on this day in 1968, Columbia students occupied Hamilton Hall to protest racism against black people. Hundreds were arrested and more than 100 injured. Can you talk about the symbolism of this building?
Well, this building is known for student takeovers, Hamilton Hall. And as you mentioned, it has been the scene of many student takeovers for decades, dating back to 1968, where student protesters were protesting the Vietnam War. And then years later, in 1972, more anti-war protests. And then even in 1985, student protesters were demonstrating at that same building when they were requesting that the university divest from companies that were doing business with South Africa. And the university later agreeing. So this is kind of what the students here want to see. They want to see the university divest from companies that may be profiting from Israel. And that building, Hamilton Hall, as you mentioned, holds a lot of symbolism and over the last several decades.
All right, Stephanie Ramos at Columbia University, thank you. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is urging Hamas to accept what he calls an extraordinarily generous ceasefire proposal from Israel. This as negotiations reach a critical point, with the secretary saying Hamas has to decide and has to decide quickly. Foreign correspondent Tom Sufi-Burridge has the latest from Jerusalem.
The first images of U.S. troops off the coast of Gaza, building a floating pier so aid can be shipped in. It comes as negotiations for a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of more hostages reach a critical point. After that Hamas video of American-Israeli hostage Keith Siegel, his daughter pleading with the U.S. and Israel to get her dad home.
We are not breathing almost 7 months.
Keith's wife, Aviva, taken hostage with him on October 7, but she was released in November.
I'm not there to give him the help. Keith is a human being with a heart, and he's sensitive, and he belongs to us. He does not belong to the Hamas.
Hamas now considering a proposal which would see a 40-day ceasefire and the potential release of thousands of Palestinian prisoners, according to a top British official. The New York Times saying Israel now willing to accept the release of 33 hostages, dropping its previous demand of 40. For people in Gaza, a ceasefire can't come soon enough. The latest Israeli airstrikes killing more than 20, including children, according to a local hospital.
The emergency room is very busy and full right now. People are desperate. They want to find their loved ones. They want treatment. They're hurting. They're in pain.
Nurse Brenda Maldonado from Washington State, working in Gaza for the past 2 weeks, telling us what she's seen will stay with her forever.
We have patients lying on the ground. Anytime we get mass casualties, which is almost every single day, the patient's brought in and placed directly on the floor. And we're treating them a lot of blast injuries, shrapnel injuries, children, older people. not soldiers. I haven't seen a soldier since I've been here. It's basically civilians.
And Diane, Prime Minister Netanyahu's still threatening to launch that ground offensive into Rafah. And in those talks, Egypt saying Hamas's negotiating team has now left Cairo and will submit a written response to the proposed ceasefire deal. Blinken expected here in Israel tonight as we wait to see how Hamas will respond. Diane?
Foreign correspondent Tom Sufi Burge, thank you. And an investigation is underway after a deadly shootout in North Carolina. 4 officers are dead and 4 injured after a suspect opened fire while they were trying to serve 2 warrants. Faith Abube has the latest from Charlotte.
4 officers killed and 4 others injured, looking for convicted felon 39-year-old Terry Clark Hughes Jr. Authorities say Hughes opened fire on the officers. Listen closely, and you can hear at least 1 gunshot knocked down during the 4-hour standoff.
We were at the track, and we could hear a lot of gunshots.
Overnight, Officer Joshua Iyer, a 6-year veteran of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, succumbing to his injuries, leaving behind a wife and 3-year-old son.
Keep your prayers, keep your faith. Make sure that these officers who have families have people to reach out and hold them up.
And Diane, Officer Sam Pelosi and William Elliott also died in that shootout. A 4th officer has yet to be identified. The police chief says the 4 others who were wounded are stable, and that suspect died on his front lawn in the shootout with police. Diane.
Faith Abube in North Carolina, thank you. Meanwhile, a new severe storm system is moving into the plains, bringing possible tornadoes to areas already devastated by an outbreak over the weekend. This as Polk County, Texas is under mandatory evacuation orders amid heavy rainfall and flooding. ABC News Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z is tracking it all for us. Hi, Ginger.
The severe weather hits just keep coming, and yes, the same areas are going to be involved again. But let's first note, even though we've started the month of April, the tornado count for the country was below average. Now it is above, and strong too. Oklahoma had its first EF4 tornado in nearly 8 years over the weekend, so they just really haven't been that strong as of late. And that was the case for Nebraska as well. So now the severe storms come back, and some of the same areas hit just last weekend are in it. The main threat here is large, and I mean giant hail, but central Iowa, including Des Moines, Kansas City, Topeka, all in that. But that little extension down into Oklahoma, you'll watch those for damaging winds as well, because that's the second most threat. We could still see an isolated tornado, but tomorrow is looking not only later. Tomorrow is like late night into even the overnight hours. Salina, Kansas, down into Woodward, Oklahoma, and we expect this to extend and maybe even push a little further east for the Wednesday threat. On top of all of it, you also have big-time rain, and so flash flooding up to a foot of rain has already happened in parts of North Texas. This is Polk County, where the Trinity River was too high, so they let the dam flow a little extra, and that meant downstream there were mandatory evacuations. That's what happens when you get 8 to 12 inches of rain really fast. Unfortunately, we're going to add even more to that. The bullseye there of 3 to 5 inches. Diane.
ABC News Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z, thank you. Coming up, a major development in the case of the Colorado mom who vanished on Mother's Day 4 years ago. What authorities say they found during Suzanne Morphew's autopsy. And the former president's criminal hush money trial is set to resume within the next hour. Trump is now headed to the courthouse, having just left Trump Tower moments ago. We have team coverage following all the updates from inside the court. Keep it here.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers
in Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine, close to the front line.
From the capital,
destructive Cat 4 storm.
You're along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you. For free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 stream. News.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television. Why do so many people start their day here?
From ABC News, this is Start Here.
To be in the know and get a different take on the day's top stories.
A lot of news today, so let's get into it.
Listen now to the Daily News Podcast honored with 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards and see why the New York Times calls it a news podcast worth listening to. Start here.
Well, how about everything you need to know?
You know, that sounds pretty good.
Give it to me. Your health, your money, breaking news, pop culture, with the biggest stars, music, trends, and of course, good food. GMA 3, what you need to know. A third hour of GMA in the afternoon.
So join us, Afternoons.
For everything you need to know. I love that.
Hi, I'm Andy. And I'm Sabrina. And we're moms, juggling tons of stuff every day, like all you moms out there.
The autopsy for a Colorado mom who vanished on a bike ride 4 years ago could shed new light on a mystery. The report says Suzanne Morphew died by homicide, finding a chemical cocktail in her bones. ABC's Ario Reshev has more.
A stunning development in the mysterious murder case of Colorado mom Suzanne Morphew, nearly 4 years after she vanished. A just-released tox officially determining her death was a homicide and finding a chemical tranquilizer.
Then that's a real possibility that they may have enough to charge somebody.
Suzanne disappeared on Mother's Day of 2020 while allegedly on a bike ride. Her husband, Barry Morphew, seen in this police body camera video, was charged a year later with first-degree murder and evidence tampering. In the arrest affidavit from 2021, investigators say they found a needle cap for a tranquilizer dart in the dryer inside bed sheets. In his defense, Barry claimed he shot a deer with a tranquilizer dart and said he disposed of the tranquilizer solution. In a major twist, prosecutors dropping all charges against him just before trial, telling us it was not because they believed Barry was innocent, but because they thought authorities were close to finding Suzanne's body. But Barry has long maintained his innocence. He spoke exclusively to ABC News last summer with his daughters Macy and Mallory by his side.
These charges were dropped without prejudice, which means if authorities feel like there's more evidence, they could charge you again. Do you live with fear of that?
Well, I was innocent the first time they arrested me, so I'm sure it's possible. But I don't have anything to worry about. I've done nothing wrong.
Did you have anything to do with the disappearance of your wife?
Absolutely not.
Prosecutors say text messages appear to show a strained marriage, Suzanne referring to Barry as Jekyll and Hyde. And just before she disappeared, telling Barry, "I'm done." Despite learning
Africa
Suzanne was having an affair, Barry and his daughters denied claims of a troubled relationship.
Was there any indication TD Africa at the forefront? Meet TD Africa, the continent's leading force in tech distribution, igniting a path of digital empowerment for over 25 years. Today, TD Africa is spearheading a new digital era with a cloud solutions platform spanning 47 African countries, empowering businesses with access to Microsoft solutions. Imagine a continent where the digital economy isn't just a dream, but a living reality, where innovation knows no bounds and possibilities are as limitless as the African sky. Start your cloud journey today. Visit tdafrica.com or email enquiries at tdafrica.com. TD Africa, empowering you.
Bon vent, mon GG. Toi, le flic chevronné.
l'ange gardien de la paix. Toi, le prince des bas-côtés des... Contrôle des papiers, s'il vous plaît. Toi qui, après 38 ans de bons et loyaux services, tires enfin ta révérence. Et oui, depuis le 1er avril, c'est la fin des cartes vertes. Comme notre GG, c'est un bout du vieux monde qui part à la retraite. Léo Care, l'assurance auto 100% mobile, 0% paperasse. Retrouvez votre carte verte directement sur l'application Léo Care.
Haya, mambo yale mengine tutashughulikia. Mungu atawajalia. Kuna watu psychologists. Unajua kama umepata
observe any fights, arguments, disagreements between your mom and your dad that concerned you before?
No. Months after our interview in September of 2023, authorities discovered Suzanne's remains in a shallow grave
to the Morphews for their response to these autopsy findings, and they told us through their attorney they are skeptical about the integrity of this investigation. Barry Morphew has long alleged prosecutorial mishandling of his case, but authorities have told us that they are not ruling out future charges against him, and this time that could happen in a different jurisdiction where Suzanne's remains were found. Diane?
Ariel Reshef, thank you. And King Charles is resuming public duties today for the first time since announcing his cancer diagnosis. He and the Queen visited patients in a cancer treatment center. ABC News foreign correspondent James Longman has the details. James?
Yeah, hi, Diane. King Charles is back. The King, of course, had to step away
Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
It's lunchtime in America, so serving up.
Well, how about everything you need to know?
You know, that sounds pretty good.
Give it to me. Your health, your money. Break with the biggest stars, music, trends, and of course, good food. GMA 3, what you need to know. A third hour of GMA in the afternoon.
So join us, Afternoons.
For everything. First thing in the morning.
There's a lot of his return to morning news
on ABC News Live. This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families
on the ground in Ukraine.
ABC News Live, America's
on 10th of June 2012, shocking out the nation of Kenya. The man in whose hands Kenya's internal security lay was normal.
He had many enemies from different quarters.
Professor George Saitoti, his assistant Orwa Ojode, two of their bodyguards and two pilots had perished in an early morning crash above Kibiko Forest in Ngong.
Our jurors have heard from three witnesses. Former National Enquirer publisher David
I would
Pecker,
want to believe
Trump's
it was an
longtime
accident.
executive
It
assistant
is
Rona Graff, and banker Gary Farrow.
incredibly strange that the person who is heading
Farrow has already
in
testified
charge
that
of your
he helped
national
Michael
security
Cohen set up the shell company
would
that
die
Cohen
in
used
such
to
a manner.
secretly pay Stormy
And
Daniels
there's no
$130,000
conclusive,
days ahead of the 2016 election.
answer
ABC News senior
that's given to
investigative
rebut
correspondent Eric
any
Petersky joins me now
rumors,
from outside
to
the
clarify
courthouse, along with
any
ABC News
suspicions,
executive
to
editorial
ironite
producer John
out all of
Santucci,
these things,
and
even
ABC News legal contributor
even
Brian
only
Buckmeyer
for
more.
the families
Aaron,
of the 6 people who are on
campaign
that
advisor for Trump, Carter Page, was spotted in the courthouse today. His ties
For
to
more than a
Russia
decade,
were scrutinized
there were
by
two
former
renowned
special counsel
professors
Robert
at the
Mueller. So
helm
what's
of
the
Kenya's
latest from
leadership.
Gordon? Is there anything to
Daniel
read here from the
Toroitich
fact that he's
Arap
there?
Moi himself, the self-declared
Yeah, I don't
professor
know.
of politics,
And
and
he's
his
been,
vice
you know,
president,
had some
George
trouble with
Saitoti,
the
a
law
true
and
professor
legal
of
entanglements himself.
mathematics.
So he was in the
Professor
public line
Saitoti was
to get in,
appointed
maybe just
finance
wants to
minister
observe.
after the
We're not
1983
sure
election.
why he's here.
Taking
When we
over
tried
from
to
Mwai
ask him,
Kibaki,
he sort of
was
ushered
transferred to
away
Home
into the
Affairs.
courtroom before
Saitoti
he could,
rose through the
he could
ranks to become
explain that
Moi's
he did
principal
confirm he is who
assistant
he
for
is.
a
And,
straight
so
13
he's here,
years,
and this
making
trial
him the
has drawn
longest
a
serving
rather
second in
interesting crowd.
command
It's a little more
until his
lively in the park
acrimonious
across the
fallout
street. A
with
few more
Moi in the
supporters of the
run-up to
former
the
president than
historic
we've seen
2002
any
general
day
election,
beforehand.
when the
Soon
late
enough, you're gonna
President
see
Moi
drive by a big
baffled
truck with a
friend
bunch
and
of Trump
foe
flags
by
and a
handpicking
very,
Uhuru Kenyatta
very loud
as his
horn.
preferred
And there's a
successor.
lot of
Huyu
people in the
makamu wa
public
rais
line that are
ni
here
rafiki,
just
lakini
to sit in and see the
urafiki,
curiosity.
sikieni,
So it has
urafiki
drawn
ni
a rather
tofauti.
unique set of people here today.
Understandable. Aaron, banker Gary Farrow is set to resume his testimony today. What are you watching for there?
He's really going to take the jury through the hush money, the paper trail of the hush money that was paid to Stormy Daniels.
A calculating and by some accounts paranoid politician, Saitoti was for most of those years the perfect vice president, never showing any overt ambitions for the top job, never overshadowing his boss until the 18th of March 2002, when Raila Odinga's National Development Party NDP merged with KANU at a colorful ceremony at the famous Kasarani Sports Complex. Saitoti, who realized he would not be occupying any of the 4 vice chairman slots, appeared to differ with his boss in public. That day would be remembered for one of Saitoti's most enduring statements.
There come a time,
if you will,
because when the nation
inside the Met some of the treated has told many people that, look, I really don't want my family there for much of this because it's embarrassing. We're talking about my personal details, my private life, etc. So I think in some ways, though, you know, Eric Trump, as it's been described to me over the years, is sort of that calming presence around his father. I mean, obviously, we know that when Donald Trump went to the White House, it was Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. that were, you know, basically given the keys to the kingdom of the Trump organization and asked to run it. Donald Trump Jr. really leaning more into the political atmosphere, but Eric Trump really becoming basically the steward of the family
Emboldened
business,
by Raila's public protest against Moi's choice, Saitoti would join the breakaway Kanu faction, dealing the Grand Old Party a near-death blow. Kanu had no chance against the resulting opposition juggernaut, the National Rainbow Coalition. In the ensuing NAC administration, Saitoti appeared poised for greater things. On 3rd of February 2006, a report by the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into the Goldenberg saga recommended that criminal charges be preferred against the former Vice President Saitoti for his involvement in the scandal. 10 days later, the Vice President resigned from his ministerial position. Extensive investigations into the allegations. On 31st July 2006, 5 months later, a 3-judge bench would issue an order that cleared Saitoti of any wrongdoing, expunged his name from the Commission's report, and put in place a permanent stay of prosecution against him. By the time of his death, Saitoti had fronted himself for the presidency, with a somewhat mixed heritage of both the Mount Kenya region and Maasai land. He was arguably the man with the power and money to succeed President Kibaki. And those in PNU at the time say
Cohen, he is
all
the
was
key
ready
witness in
for
this
the
case,
journey
and he has
ahead.
been live streaming about it ahead of his testimony. He might even be getting virtual donations from viewers on TikToks for those live streams. So how could that impact the trial?
Chemotherapy.
Well, it certainly can't make prosecutors happy that he's talking about the case, that he's talking about his own forthcoming testimony, and maybe most annoyingly, he's goading Trump by saying things like Trump 2024, more like Trump 2224. That's not going to help.
Around the 10th of June 2012, the aircraft 5Y-CDT AS-350 dropped from the skies into Kibiko Forest in Ngam. Minutes later, amateur footage from the first eyewitnesses showed the scene of a terrible accident. The mangled fuselage of a small aircraft, bodies on board charred, most of them beyond recognition. But there was going to be more. News flashes on mainstream media had by now confirmed the identity of the mangled bodies on the horror scene. On board the ill-fated plan were Kenya's Security Minister George Saitoti, his assistant Joshua Orwa Ojode, their bodyguards Joshua Tonkei and Thomas Kimunya was the Minister for Transport, and naturally he would receive briefs of any accidents that had taken place. And he thought that this was just another of the usual crimes. It was not.
And it was because our team had gotten tipped off that Cohen was doing these videos around 10 p.m. at night, and they just sort of start organically. Like, I actually watched the fact that he's continued to be out there. You know, the comments he made, as Aaron pointed out, he made a posting on Thursday on X, formerly Twitter, saying, I'm going to stop. But as ABC News reviewed, Diane, he continued doing these TikTok videos well into the weekend, including last night.
And Brian, is the jury allowed to be on TikTok if there's a chance they could be exposed to media about this case?
The Kipipiri MP says he was shaken by the news, not just because he had lost a friend, but because he could have been a part of the 8:30 a.m. tragedy.
But TikTok, X, TV, like people, family members. You go out for dinner, you're sitting next to someone, and the table says, "Did you hear what Michael Cohen said on X?" Like they're going to hear it, and so you're telling me now this is recent news. I would be surprised if we don't hear about this in the court today or Thursday, knowing that Wednesday's a day off.
And John, what are you hearing from Trump's inner circle about how he's reacting to the testimony and the trial in general so far?
Well, there's a fascinating piece actually this morning in the New York Times, some of which me and my colleague Catherine Folders and Olivia Rubin have heard about Trump actually being a little upset with his legal team, saying that lead attorney Todd Blanche, according to the Times, is not being tough enough in this case, is not targeting the judge, not targeting witnesses, not even hitting the jury in some cases when they went through jury selection. I think that's pretty typical, right? We know that Donald Trump believes he's his best spokesperson, his best campaign manager, and in some ways now his best lawyer, right? How many times over the years I've heard it, we've reported it on ABC, Donald Trump has said to people, "Get me my Roy Cohn," referring to the infamous lawyer that he had at one point in the early life of his career, and he felt that Roy Cohn was very good, basically doing everything a little bit on the line, if not jumping over the line, and I think that's what Trump has looked for repeatedly in his lawyers.
Within a month, Kimunya would quickly gazette a team to investigate the accident.
To think
that team would later be
degazetted anytime soon, dream on. This is Donald Trump. So, when I saw that story this morning, I said, oh, we've entered that part of the movie.
All right. So, Aaron, the judge is also set to hold another hearing on Thursday about whether or not to hold Trump in contempt for alleged gag order violations. So what are you watching for there, especially given he will be on the campaign trail just a day before on Wednesday?
So we'll see if the prosecutors come up with any additional violations of the gag order as they see it. Since they brought up a couple of social media posts, interviews, hallway remarks, Trump has actually seemed to have avoided those kinds of incendiary things about witnesses or the jury that could run him afoul of the gag order. And we'll see if that continues or whether the judge is prepared to make some kind of a statement.
By commissioning an inquiry so quickly, the government was caving in to pressure to answer difficult questions about what really had led to the deadly crash in Quebec. But why was this accident of such importance to the public? Investigative journalist John Alan Namu, who covered the story, was among the very few journalists asking the hard questions about the crash. He followed the trail all the way to South Africa.
John Santucci, Brian Buckmeyer, thank you all. And we will be following this trial all day long, and we'll bring you updates as we get them right here on ABC News Live. Meanwhile, pro-Palestinian protesters are now barricaded inside a building at Columbia University. The campus newspaper reports students have broken windows and are blocking exits with tables and zip ties after school officials started suspending students who refused to leave an encampment. This as police clash with protesters at universities across the country.
There was certainly a lot of interest around George Saitoti as a person, enough for there to warrant an inquiry.
Saitoti lived a reclusive lifestyle, feared a lot for his life. Just 2 decades earlier, he had escaped what was seen as a calculated murder attempt in the wake of the mysterious murder of the then high-flying Foreign Affairs Minister, Dr. Robert Ouko, in 1990. The Commission of Inquiry put in place at the time was chaired by top Judge Kalpana Rawal, later to become Deputy Chief Justice. The Rawal Commission did little to unlock the mystery behind the death of Saitoti, Ojode, Oyugi, Gitwanja, Tonkei, and Moremi, but instead exposed the country to numerous serious questions and outright gaps in the investigation. A reconstruction of the journey from Wilson Airport to Ndhiwa shows the aircraft under the command of Luke Oyugi and Nancy Gitwanja took exactly 10 minutes from the time of takeoff to the time it hit the ground in Kibiku Forest. The pilots were in communication with the command center at Wilson Airport for the first 6 minutes. The plane then left the Wilson Airport airspace that minute. And strangely, Its tracker shows that it turned back towards Wilson and steadily descended to the ground in a record 3 minutes, killing everyone on board. There was no evidence that pilots made any effort to control the plane. Neither did they raise any alarm over the state of the flight, even though the communication channels were operational, giving rise to opinions that the pilots may have been long dead by the time of the crash. The Commission of Inquiry was tasked with establishing what happened in those 180 seconds. It was here that the Commission heard that indeed Saitoti was poisoned. The stunning revelation sharply contradicted an official report by the government chemist that the minister's blood and tissue analysis indicated no poison. Dr. Dorothy Njeru and Dr. Amritpal Kaur Kalsi told the city that Saitoti's body indicated significant levels of carbon monoxide poisoning. This was evidenced by a cherry-pink discoloration of the tissues.
With a background of a body that is significantly involved in burn injuries, then the bright red discoloration is suggestive of carbon monoxide.
We are here in Israel, a nation at war after that brutal surprise attack by Hamas.
So that's with the additional observations that you did when you observed in your participation, which are not captured in the report.
The two forensic experts outrightly disowned the previous post-mortem report that had been presented. Johansson made no mention of carbon monoxide poisoning. In fact, his report showed that the cause of death for the six was multiple injuries and burns due to aviation accident. And then there was something else. Dr. Johansson Oduor was dishing special instructions.
Yesterday you mentioned
America's #1 streaming news.
It's lunchtime in America, so what are we serving up?
Well, how about everything you need to know?
Would you want to share with us?
Photographs or a note or tell anybody about anything.
Be your own man.
Apart from Dr. Oduor not indicating the poisoning, the role of the National Intelligence Agency also came into sharp focus.
The National
Introducing Blueband with Choco. So yummy with 5 good starch vitamins. The goodness of Blueband with delicious choco. Taste the 2-in-1 choco goodness today. Blueband with Choco. Available in stores.
I think there might have been just thinking
wale watu wafanya kazi pale isifanyike Nairobi, ikuje ifanyike hapo. Ndio hakuna mtu ya kupanda gari kwenda kufanya interview. Kila mtu anataka barua hapa. Unafika pale unafanya interview, unapita unaendelea na kibarua. Tunaelewana. Na ni kwa sababu mimi niliwaeleza wakati nilikuwa hapa ya kwamba hii Naivasha tutaifanya industrial city. Kuna wale walikuwa wanatuambia ya kwamba ati tutahamisha hii Naivasha industrial city atiende Mombasa. Walikuwa wanasema hivyo. Wale ni matapeli na waongo. Sasa ndio hii wacha ilikuwa na shamba eka 1,000. Sasa nimenunua eka 5,000 nyingine kuongezea juu. Ndio hapa tujenge mpaka tuhamishe Kenya mzima ijenge na kuendelea na Kenya. Sasa nyinyi mtajipanga. Unanielewa? Ile kiwanda yote ambayo mmesikia
A report by an official from the government chemist Joyce Wairimu Njoya presented to the Commission in 2012 indicated that the 3 samples submitted for testing only look already had carbon monoxide poisoning, but his co-pilot Nancy Gitwanja and Saitoti returned negative results. It has always begged the question on what really was the cause of the odorless and colorless gas carbon monoxide if Nancy Gitwanja did not inhale it at all. But Luko Yugis was at 68% concentration, yet they both sat in the same cockpit. It has also never been said why the bodies of Ojode, Tonkei and More on the morning that the accident happened, It was supposed to be airwing command found itself in the hands of a police officer, Constable Evans Kiprotich. For about a month, Saitoti's mobile phone fell in the hands of a police officer. Merlin received a total of 42 phone calls. Strangely but material was that at one of those calls Ruto said the public has never been made aware who that person was and what information they wanted from South Africa.
Kansas down into and further east for the Wednesday
I kind of at
On
times
top of all of
believe
it, you also have big time rain. And
Kuna thina Ngai nĩ mwega na hĩndĩ ciothe
this is Polk County
ithuĩ tũkire kũmwĩra mũtirĩ ika nĩguo mwona thirikari yothe ĩ haha rĩu president ĩ haha rĩ governor ĩ haha rĩ maminista me haha rĩ kweri mwĩ ika kana mũkwendaga baba mũtheru kana mũkwendaga
No. ABC News
rĩu mũtwĩra ũthamaki wothe wĩ haha na maũndũ mau mothe mũnene amwĩra ũhoro wa gwakĩrwo nyũmba andũ aya tũkũmakĩra nyũmba na tũmethere handũ hangĩ kĩrĩa tũtakwenda andũ aitũ tafadhali tũtikae gũtijana na Ngai andũ aya mũmere matikage na haraka ya gũcoka kwao nĩguo mũmatare wega kahora mũreke tũmarehere irio tũmarehere ndawa tũmarehere maũndũ mau mothe tondũ mũnene nĩ anjĩrĩte ĩno eci yothe tũmĩike haha nginya maũndũ mothe marĩke nĩguo na nitaenda kwa sababu ulikuwa hapa kutoka upande wa Kijabi hii barabara hapa ni pati ya Mahiu na tumesema hii kilomita 4 kama kuna pahali itafunguka tuanze na hii hapa mpaka upande wa pale Kijabi. Na pia tuko na PS wetu Raymond Omolo ako hapa wa Interior. Nimesikia kuna kijana hapo amepokonywa nduthi na PS amesema rais amesema hiyo nduthi irudishwe mara moja. Sawa nĩguo ya ndoito na mũgwetekera tũnyitanĩre tukorwo twĩ kĩndũ kĩmwe na Ngai witũ ndarigana nĩ ithuĩ Ngai tũmũrathime na mwĩkwa. Asante sana.
Listen now to the Daily News Podcast honored with 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards and see why the New York Times calls it the news podcast worth listening to.
And many theories remain fully untested. A few years earlier, Kenya had seized its largest cocaine haul. Just before his death, Saitoti had promised the National
So, how about everything you need to know?
You know, that sounds pretty good. Your health, your money, breaking news, pop culture, with the biggest stars, music, trends, and of course, good food. GMA 3, what you need to
Mike, angalia senyora kwenye buka. Oye, ambia wasi watoke bana. Weka distance.
know, a third hour of GMA in the afternoon.
So join us, Afternoons.
For everything you need to know.
I love that.
Hi, I'm Andy. And I'm Sabrina. And we're moms, juggling tons of stuff every day, like all you moms out there. And
You know what we love? Really love? Pop culture. So listen now to our new podcast, Pop Culture Moms, wherever you get your podcasts.
Reporting in Moscow, Idaho, I'm Kana Whitworth. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live. Welcome back. We have breaking news. Former President Trump is now in a Manhattan court getting ready to enter his criminal hush money trial. Let's listen.
Thank you very much. So we begin again. This is a case that should never have been brought. Every single major legal scholar, Jonathan Turley, Greg Jarrett, Andy McCarthy, Dershowitz, every single scholar, Mark Levin, the great Mark Levin, had a whole show on it. This is a disgraceful case. It's a disgrace to the New York state and city court system. And all of the cases are, frankly, all of them are. You probably saw last night that Jack Smith got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. It was released late last night, and it's a big story.